Welcome to Horror Tales, where the shadows come alive and every story leaves you breathless. The last student. It was the winter of last year, and our final exams were just around the corner. Like most students, I was struggling to keep up with all the subjects in revision. To help us prepare, the school announced that the library would stay open late until midnight, giving us more time to study. I lived close to the school, so instead of staying at home with all the distractions, I decided to make the most of the quiet library. It was peaceful, and I could concentrate better. That day, I arrived at the library around 6 p.m. Time flew by, and soon it was 9 p.m. By then, most of the students had already left. I looked around and realized that I was the only one left. The silence of the library was calming yet unnerving at the same time, but I was determined to finish my work. At 11 p.m., I was still there, deep into my textbooks. That's when I heard a faint sound, like a chair scraping against the floor. I glanced up. The library was completely empty. I shook my head, assuming it was just my tired mind playing tricks on me. But then I heard it again. This time it was closer. Suddenly, all the lights in the library flickered. The dim lights created unsettling shadows on the walls. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't unusual for the power to flicker in the old building, but something felt off. I packed my bag quickly, deciding it was time to leave. As I headed for the exit, I heard footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, and getting louder. Hello, I called out, but there was no response. I quickened my pace, my shoes echoing down the hallway as I walked towards the main exit. The school's hallways were cold and drafty, and the silence was deafening. When I reached the final turn that led to the exit door, I stopped in my tracks. A figure was standing in the middle of the hallway. It was a boy, no older than 10, dressed in an old-school uniform. His back was facing me, and his head was slightly lowered. "Hey, are you lost?" I asked, though my voice came out shakier than I intended. The boy didn't respond or move. He just stood there, motionless. The air around him felt icy cold, colder than the rest of the building. I took a cautious step forward, but my gut screamed at me to turn around and leave. Suddenly, the boy started walking slowly down the hall, away from me, without saying a word. His footsteps were unnervingly loud in the empty corridor. I called out again, but he ignored me. I felt compelled to follow him, even though every instinct told me not to. As I followed, I noticed something strange. His shadow didn't match his movement. While the boy walked forward, his shadow seemed to lag behind, almost as if it had a mind of its own. My pulse quickened. The boy turned a corner, and when I followed, he was gone. But the door at the end of the hallway was wide open. That door led to the old wing of the school, which had been abandoned for years after a fire had destroyed a section of it. I stared at the open door. A cold breeze swept through, sending chills down my spine. I was about to turn back when I heard a faint voice echo from inside the old wing. "Help me." The voice was soft, almost a whisper. It sounded like the boy. Against my better judgment, I stepped through the door. The old wing was dark and filled with debris. The floor creaked beneath my feet, and the air smelled musty, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. As I walked deeper into the abandoned section, I heard the boy's voice again. "Help me find my way." I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. The voice seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. I turned around, ready to leave, but the door I had just come through was now shut. Panic surged through me. That's when I saw him again, the boy. He stood in the middle of the old hallway, staring directly at me. His eyes were hollow, dark, and his face was pale, as if he hadn't seen sunlight in years. "Help me find my way," he repeated, his voice colder this time. I backed away, but he took a step closer. His feet dragged on the floor, leaving marks in the dust. "Please," he whispered, his voice no longer sounding like a child's. It was deeper, more distorted, like something inhuman. My legs wouldn't move, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The boy kept coming closer, his eyes locked on mine. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. Just as he was about to reach me, the door behind me swung open with a loud creak. Startled, I turned and bolted through it, running as fast as I could down the hallway. My heart raced, and I didn't stop running until I burst out of the main exit into the cold night air. I didn't look back. I just kept running until I reached my house. The next day, I asked some of the older teachers about the old wing and the boy. One teacher, an elderly man, told me something chilling. Years ago, a boy went missing in the old wing after the fire, he said. He was never found. Some say his spirit still roams the hallways looking for someone to help him find his way out. I haven't stayed late in the library since,